Here. All right, so let's get started. Welcome, everybody. So, this is another installment in the Adult Forge Covenant series, where we are basically discussing what does it mean to be a real adult, not something conversations that you have around town or maybe ever, but it's at the core of our human experience, and it's something that should be everyday talk. Now, who would want to listen to this? Typically, I hear a lot of people saying things like, yeah, I get it. There's something wrong. But I'm really tired of just pointing it out. When are we going to get together and actually do something? When are we going to work together? Okay. And probably deep in your psyche, you're thinking there's a difference between reacting and being proactive. And I think a lot of people are making a mistake that being reactive is actually being proactive. So we've done a whole video on that to bring out that whole concept of the difference between passivity, reactivity, and being proactive. And so yeah, if you're the type of person that is wanting to do something instead of just being a master of the obvious and pointing out what's wrong. And also, here's another thought. If you do something, is it going to be temporary, or is it going to be a winner? Is it going to create a permanent change? Right? So an example we've used in the past is scurvy. Right? So scurvy is now, the prevention for scurvy has now been solved. People can still get scurvy, but it'll never reach epidemic proportions again. The news is out. So this is what we're looking at now, right? Scurvy has been won permanently. And so the point of the Adult Forge Covenant is, the broad idea is that adults are going to retake the high ground from the narcissistic, malevolent, disordered children. And we're going to retain that high ground, and it will never be given up again. But the key is that we're not going to be able to just wait around for adults to appear out of nowhere, because generally they don't exist. The reason they don't exist is that they are being destroyed deliberately in a gigantic coordinated fashion. So sitting around waiting for adults to appear by waking people up is not going to work. The toughest people that you needed to work with, they woke up in the first week. Okay? Everything since then is diminishing returns. So if you imagine that somehow we're going to get the word out and people are going to wake up, well, these are not exactly going to be the Viking warriors you're looking for, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So the point is, we are being created into infantilism. So the plan is, we're just going to create adults. And we're going to keep it that way. So today's topic is going to be about individualism. Again, how many people when's the last time you ever had a sit-down talk? Not about hockey, not about baseball, not about soccer, but actually something that really matters, a profound subject like individualism. And where does individualism fit in the whole scheme of things when it comes to being an adult? Well, I suggest that real adulthood, the prerequisite for that is to be an individual. There's no such thing as a real adult who is still prescribed to blind tribalism. Okay? If you haven't moved beyond that, you really have to reconsider your self-assessment of yourself as a real adult. Individualism has its own precursor and that is critical thinking. And we've done a video on that too. Critical thinking is when you can actually go through a series of logical steps. Okay? But if you allow yourself to do that, and not everybody allows themselves to do that, if you allow yourself to do that, it's going to lead you to one place where you realize that most people don't think and that you are alone or somewhat alone in that area. And for you to be okay with that, there's a prerequisite to critical thinking, and that is emotional maturity. Critical thinking will quickly take you to very uncomfortable places emotionally, where, for example, you're going to realize, oh, I'm not in a crowd, I'm not in a team, I'm not in a bunch of like-minded people. My thoughts are my own, and they set me apart from many people. Okay? So if that's scary to you, then that's what's going to cripple your application of critical thinking. I don't think people really need to be taught how to do critical thinking so much. It's pretty natural. But the prerequisite to critical thinking is emotional maturity. Okay? But there's one final root cause. There's a root precursor to emotional maturity, and that's called inner significance. And there's will be a video on that. And the concept of inner significance means that you can generate a feeling of significance within yourself purely from internal source. And you do not need any external feedback for you to decide whether you're significant or not. A little baby, yes, that only comes from the external. What's the use of the internal significance if they're going to leave behind in a ditch? You need to know that you're going to be safe. Okay, that's a perfectly legitimate 100% external significance as a baby. So anyway, that's the breakdown. It goes inner significance, emotional maturity, critical thinking, individuality, results. All of that results in a real adult. And I have to say that it's kind of hard to talk about each of these things by themselves because they're all highly connected. And the further you go down the line, the more they draw from all of the previous all over the place. So we try to speak about it in an individual, we try to speak about it in encapsulate it just for it's more understandable, but it's very easy to go off in different directions, which is fine. All right. So one of the things we want to start out with is to define what individualism really means. Okay. And I'm not talking about what happens when somebody is an individual, like the typical, emergent properties of being an individual, how people behave. What I'm talking about is the actual definition of individualism. And actually, I'm still working on that. But there is a lot of things about individualism that are misconceptions. People when I talk about it, people automatically go this place every single time. So I want to talk about the misconceptions about individualism. But anyway, so I would say the definition of individualism is kind of like opposite to something else. It's not quite all the way there. But individualism is the absence of blind tribalism. Okay? And like I said, individualism is the precursor to being a real adult. If you still prescribe to blind tribalism, and that's your comfort zone, and you'll never leave that zone, no matter what the circumstances, again, you have to really reconsider your self-conception as an adult. Individualism is the absolute bedrock precursor to being a real adult. Okay? Now, so here are some of the misconceptions, and these misconceptions can kind of help us define what it is. So one of the misconceptions that I see all the time is, I'll say individualism, and people will say, yeah, but I don't want to be selfish, right? Mm-hmm. But selfishness is nothing to do with individualism. I'll explain later. Another rebuttal that I hear when I just mention the word individualism is that, yeah, but no man is an island, or I don't want to be antisocial, or I'm not antisocial. Again, individualism has nothing to do with rejecting social bonds. In fact, it could even strengthen them, I would say. So, a true individual can work together with other people fantastically. If there's something you believe in, then the individual can easily drop his immediate needs and work together as part of a team. Okay, and be very loyal to the leader. An individual can be extremely giving and altruistic, right? In a sensible manner. So those things, selfishness and antisocial, has nothing to do with individualism. Um, Individuals are people who can basically, if there comes a problem with whatever they're working together with people on, if there's a moral problem, they can easily step out and call out a problem and say, this goes against my moral values. Okay. And you could be the only one out of 100,000 people who would dare to do that, who would dare to actually have your own thoughts and trust your own thoughts, have your own moral compass and trust your own moral compass, and not bend your knee to other people who may be behaving with the emotional level of a 3-year-old. Okay, and you've got no problem with that. If you fix the problem because you've stood up and then you can get back to business, that's fine. Go back to working for whoever you're working for, collaborating with whoever you're collaborating with, and get the job done in a fantastic manner, right? And I don't mean just a job, of course. It could be social circumstances. You're going camping or something. But that is a basic rundown of what I mean by individualism. I've kind of defined it as opposite to what it's not. Maybe someday I'll come up with a real proper definition for individualism, and who knows? In the comments, you may have ideas about that. Right. So, anything come up for you at all so far? I've got some personal stories and thought experiments that we can talk about.
Probably think of the definition. I mean, it's having your own agency.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe one, like your own actual thoughts and decisions of, okay, what is my feeling, my thought, and taking your own course of action.
Mm-hmm.
Could also be having the critical thinking to examine that as well. Is that my course of action? Does that fit with my moral compass?
Mm-hmm.
Is that being true to myself? Does that have integrity?
Yeah.
Integrity is a good one that way.
So, what would be the real stress test of individuality? Like somebody can self-declare they're individual.
Yeah.
But what would be an example of a serious stress test to find out if you really are?
They'll self-conform to something.
Yeah, right. Right.
If you don't conform, you're out.
Right.
Kind of
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, there's kind of real consequences, right? I mean, so if you don't go along, you're out of the club.
Okay, then. So how about the Ash conformity test?
Perfect. Yeah, 100%.
Right. You want to explain the Ash conformity test? Do you have that memorized?
I know what I mean for our audience.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So the Ash conformity test was an experiment maybe in the 50s where they had 10 people in a row looking at a screen, and the screen had these different height of bars, ASCH or ASCHE, I can't remember. But anyway, they were looking at the screen with these black bars on the screen and of different lengths. And the subjects were told, tell us which is the longest length. And everybody from number 1 down to number 9 chose the second highest bar. And the last person, the 10th person, they watched to see what he would say. So the first 9 people were not actually random subjects. They were all participants in the test. And they were told to choose the second largest against the most obvious longest line. And what was it, 70, 75, 80% of the people at number 10, the true test subjects, they chose the second longest line that everyone else did. Okay?
Well, maybe not after the first try, but after the second and third try, they conformed, basically.
Yeah, right.
And they didn't question them, they didn't object, they
Yeah.
just conformed.
Yeah. So even though they knew, well, it was obvious which was the longest one, they chose the second longest one against their own instincts. Okay? And what their eyes told them, they did not, they refused. I don't know if they didn't believe it, but their eyes were giving them an inconvenient result, which will take them out of the tribe
Yeah, exactly.
and into individuality, where I actually have a different idea than the majority of the population, right? Which is a mini majority of 10 to 1.
And it may stir the pot.
That's right. So this is an example of individualism. Like, can you trust your own instincts in complete opposition to the majority? Or do you bend the knee so that you don't stand out? Well, the point of the Ash conformity test was to say this is the population who will give up their individuality to fit in with the crowd and go against their own critical thinking. Yeah, that's the word I meant to use. Critical thinking tells you that this is the longest one, right?
Yeah.
But then it also goes to show that critical thinking is severely constrained by your level of emotional maturity. In other words, I feel afraid that I'm alone.
Right.
And so what can I do with that feeling of being afraid? Can I categorize it as being not credible? Or do I just say, if I'm afraid, then I'm afraid and that's real, right? But then that emotional maturity, that depends on your level of inner significance. In other words, I want to feel significant, right? But the thing is, what if most of my significance comes from externally? So those 10 people, what if I'm depending on those 9 out of 10 people to say they like me and accept me?
Yeah.
Then if I choose the longest one, I'm going against all of them. And then they're going to tell me I'm insignificant. And I would throw the truth into the garbage before I would ever risk being insignificant, externally insignificant, right? So that Ash conformity test is legitimate, but here's what I say about that Ash conformity test is that it's flawed because there's a variable that they're not considering, and that is the level of individualism in the person. In other words, that may be an example of what level of individualism is within the society as a whole on the average. But what if you were to take 10 of the most individualistic people that you could find and then put them in that test?
Right, okay.
What would happen to your percentages? You'd probably get like 95%. So the Ash conformity test is flawed. And in fact, what about if you took that 20% of people or 15 or whatever who actually stuck to their guns and chose the longest one despite the social pressure, and then you redid it, a different test that they were unsuspecting with that group, artificially high levels of individualism, and then apply the test to them. So that's why the Ash conformity test is not really legitimate. Yes, it's a legitimate in that is the baseline in society,
Right.
but society doesn't have to be at that baseline.
Right.
You know, you can have more or less individuals. Like in the West, we know that things are much more individualistic
Mm-hmm.
by by design in the West,
Mm-hmm.
while in the East, it's much more tribalistic.
Well, they tell us that in the West. Is it really?
Well, in comparison,
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
saying
No.
they're
Right.
purely
Right. Right. Right.
individualistic
Right.
and purely
Yeah. Yeah.
tribalistic,
That's true. Yeah.
but if you look at the big picture,
Right. Right.
you know, like in fact, I had a chat with a Japanese lady,
Mm-hmm.
and I was saying, I kind of said, my idea of adulthood is that you have to be an individual,
Mm-hmm.
and she goes, "No, I don't agree."
Right. Right.
And I said, "Oh, why not?" She goes, "Well, I think that it's more an adult is more a team player and tribalistic."
Oh. Okay. Wow.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "But wait a second.
Right.
You're from the East,
Yeah.
from Japan, and we all know about Japan where the nail that sticks up gets hammered down.
Yeah.
So how do I know that your opinion is not just comes from your culture?"
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, "Oh, wait a second. I come from an individualistic culture.
Right.
Maybe that forms my opinion." So I was just like, "Oh my goodness."
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, I kind of took a sidebar there. But anyway, individualism. I'm still maintaining that even though I grew up in a more individualistic culture, half the world, more than half the world, grows up in tribalistic cultures.
Mm-hmm.
Like look at the Arabs.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, they are like exceedingly tribalistic.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
And that comes from way back when,
Right.
you know, in the pre-modern times, right? It's like it's my tribe against yours,
Right.
period, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, I kind of lost track of what I was saying about individualism. I knew I was gonna do that with the sidebar, but
The level of it.
okay. So I guess another sidebar is I just want to reiterate that when they say tribalistic or individualistic, when you zoom in on a granular person into the small scale, you don't know what you're going to find, right? But what I'm talking about is when you zoom out to the macro scale, things become very predictable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's when you can say individualistic versus tribalistic, although they're not black and white like that, but they have a trend, more or the other.
Mm-hmm.
But then look at some of the concepts or the ideas where some people, for some reason, just are more individualistic, even though they have been rigorously trained out of individualism from birth, and they've never seen individualism, and individualism is punished, and yet they demand, "I am an individual."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I've heard lots of stories about these very kind of tribalistic Anabaptist societies,
Mm-hmm.
which are the Mormons, the Mennonites, they have their communes,
Mm-hmm.
and shunning. So if you go against them,
Mm-hmm.
you don't follow the exact clothing pattern,
Right. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
belief pattern,
Yeah.
and the behavior pattern. It's not just they're gonna give you like a talking to. You could actually be shunned, and then there goes your whole
Mm-hmm.
family life, everything you've known,
Mm-hmm.
and this is set up this way.
Mm-hmm.
It is set up
Mm-hmm.
to crush individualism.
Mm-hmm.
But having said, no, there's some movies about that too, like about some person who's Amish or whatever,
Yeah.
and they are having to kind of like wake up to what's going on. They resent being told what to do, and then they're kind of coming out of that, But there's lots of YouTube videos about people talking about their experience coming out of these societies,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I guess my point is that try as you might, there are some people that are just so individualistic you can't hold them down.
Mm-hmm.
And they might be 1 in 10,000. I don't know, in a society like that. But then, what about if a person were to promote individualism as a positive thing,
Mhm.
as a precursor to real adulthood,
Mhm.
you know, what would that do to the numbers?
Mhm.
You know, um, so yeah, so that's an example of individualism, and you just cannot hold that person back, and they're going to do that no matter what. But that doesn't really represent the whole population who would be willing to do that, right?
Mhm.
But I think that most of the population would want to do that if they were allowed, if they were fostered,
Mhm.
if they weren't poisonously beaten down
Yeah. Yeah.
into that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But then you look at the same Amish population or Hutterite or whatever, and I forget exactly what denomination it is, but there's one of these Anabaptist type of groups, and they completely shun the government.
Mhm.
They want nothing to do with the government, and they don't vaccinate their children against the government regulations.
Good.
They refuse to.
Mhm.
And so you see, even in such a tribalistic society, they are actually behaving in a far more individualistic manner in some cases.
Well, is that reactive or individualistic? I mean, that would be a distinction. That'd be a good question. That's one question I'd say. Like, is that being reactive or
Mhm.
individualistic? And how do you know the difference?
You mean by not by going against the government,
Right.
or yeah. By well, I think they ignore the government.
Okay.
They just like
Right.
don't
Yeah,
talk to me.
not credible.
Yeah, they're not credible, right?
Yeah.
And they don't participate in the medical system, the
Right.
mandatory medical system
Yeah.
in Canada.
Yeah.
What they'll do is they have a problem, they'll bring the kid in or bring the person in and pay outright the fee, the whole fee,
Right.
to get the person healed, but they won't participate in this very socialistic,
Yes. Yeah.
like non-optional,
Yes.
basically. Well, they
Exactly.
tell you it's non-optional,
Yeah.
right? System. So I'm just saying there's an example of where you say not individualistic, and yet there's elements of
Mhm.
extreme individualism, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so I guess my point is it's just not so black and white, you know.
Yeah. So you could be individualistic in some areas, but in other areas you're not. Right. I mean,
Yeah.
which also means you're not a full adult yet. You're on the way. You have in some areas.
Mhm.
You still need work in other areas to be, full individual or full adult, right, essentially.
Right. And I
Anything.
think that for some people it could be a long journey,
Yeah.
but for some people, once you just wake up, you're just there instantly,
Right. Right. Right.
you know, because it's like there's a spring that's been stretched,
Mhm.
and you're just waiting for permission, and you go bing right.
Or sometimes just a realization. It's like doesn't he ever really occur to you? You didn't have a thought, or wasn't?
Mhm.
Oh, I can do that, or that's possible, or
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's another good point. It's like, oh, there's my critical thinking,
right, right.
right? But
Mhm.
then where does my critical thinking lead me to? I'm going to be immediately, like the minute you think it,
Right,
I'm going to be expelled from the colony,
right. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So I don't dare think that thought.
Right.
I just drive it to the bottom.
Mhm.
But then what about the people that just like sit with it and they go, you know what? I feel so much better as an individual.
Mhm.
And that's the thing, is that if you're a child and you're tribalistic, it's natural.
Mhm.
It's age appropriate
Mhm.
because you got your family and they're all looking after you and they're all focused on you,
Mhm.
and the big daddy and the big mommy is there and they're focused on you.
Mhm.
And tribalism is extremely gratifying. It's a survival technique
Mhm.
for a little child.
Mhm.
But what I'm suggesting is that by the time you get to be an adult, you're leaving tribalism behind, and it's only natural to be individualistic. So if you're an adult and you're still tribalistic, it's agony,
Mhm. Mhm.
is what I'm suggesting.
Mhm.
You may not even know it's agony,
Right. Yeah.
but it is,
Yeah. Mhm.
and it's unnatural.
Mhm.
I think I've used a comment before, like drinking from your mother's breast as a baby is the most perfect, most
Yeah.
wonderful,
Yeah.
most delicious, natural bonding thing to do.
Mhm.
But then try and crawl up as a 40-year-old on your mom's
Mhm.
lap.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So it's completely changed now. It's
Mm-hmm.
completely unnatural. What used to be so perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So the point I'm trying to make here is that tribalism in childhood is fine, but tribalism in adulthood is an agony, only because it's unnatural. Tribalism is supposed to have disappeared by the time you become an adult. And of course, when I say tribalism, again, I mean blind tribalism. There's nothing wrong with belonging to a tribe and cooperating with them and even, you know, doing things they do. But, without blind tribalism, you'll say, no, that is narcissistic. Yeah, I like you guys, but I'm not going to participate in that because that bit is poisonous.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna subject myself to that. I'm not going to bend my knee to childish behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to subject my children to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
But I still like the rest of you. I still like the other bits about you, but not that.
Right. Right.
So I'm sorry that you're all blindly following that and you've never questioned it.
Mm-hmm.
But I am so highly individualistic and I'm so jealous of my adulthood and my that I will just not participate and go ahead, give me whatever,
Some flack.
give me whatever flack you're going to give me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'll take it because that can be repaired.
Mm-hmm.
But me throwing away my adulthood,
Mm-hmm.
that cannot be repaired.
Well, there's a cost.
There's a cost.
Like the cost of your own psyche, your own morals, your own integrity,
Yep.
your own self worth, or significance, you could say, right?
Yeah. Peace of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you are an adult but you're behaving like a child,
Yeah.
then that is a terrific hit on your peace of mind.
And it could be, say you're in a board, and there's something in the budget doesn't seem right,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't question, then that could be a legal obligation or have different consequences too, right?
Right.
This can be different kinds of consequences that can happen from this.
Yeah. So if you uncover graft,
Right. Yeah.
then they could like fire you
You're
because they're all
You're
criminals.
also complicit if you
That's right.
don't bring it up, right?
But they don't care that they're complicit
No.
because they're narcissistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. One of the things I'd like to get on later on is how to foster individualism. We're pointing it out.
Mhm.
We're defining it. Well, first we're defining it. Then we're pointing out the features of it. And then I'd like to talk about how to foster it. But that's later. So what are some other examples we can have of individualism? There's personal stories, but there's also thought experiments. And actually, I was at a philosophy meetup just on Thursday, and the subject was Plato's allegory of the cave. Have you heard of that one before?
A long time ago.
Right.
I don't recall.
You couldn't recall it now, right? Okay, so this is a good thought experiment, and I'll admit that it covers everything. It covers inner significance, emotional maturity, critical thinking, individualism, right? And your relationship to the truth. But Plato's allegory of the cave basically states that there's a cave and there's people in the cave lined up shoulder to shoulder, but they're kind of shackled where they can't turn around. And all they can do is face forward looking at the wall of the cave. They can't can't look behind themselves. They're fixed forward. And on the wall of the cave are these shadows dancing along the cave wall. And they've grown up that way. Their parents, when they grew up with their parents were shackled looking at the wall with all the shadows. And they weren't having a view of the real world. They were kind of captured in an artificial environment, giving them a modified view of the real world. Okay. Now, one person, what we would call a philosopher, he removed his shackles, just stood up, and walked out of the cave. As he was walking out of the cave, he was able to see the whole cave, and in the background of the cave were these campfires. And there were people who were also in the cave, but they were making hand signals, like like wolf signals you can do in front of light, and they were deliberately doing these shadows to cast shadows on the wall for these captives to look at. And so they're more like the real world, but they were actively participating in tricking the majority of the population. And actually, that's one thing about Plato's allegory of the cave. Everyone talks about all sorts of things about the allegory, but nobody ever talks about who are those people doing that.
Right. Yeah.
That always gets skipped.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So anyway, the philosopher, walks out of the cave, and where there's a light, and when he walks out, he's into brilliant sunshine. And actually, the sunshine is so bright that he has to keep his eyes closed for a while until he gets used to it. But then he does get used to it, and he sees flowers, birds, sunshine, and he sees three-dimensional objects, not two-dimensional shadows on the wall, just in black and white. He's seeing in full color. And then he comes back into the cave, and he goes up to all the chained up people, and he says, hey, it's way better out there.
Right.
And guess what reaction he gets? They curse him, they stone him, they spit at him, they threaten his life, get away from me.
Yeah.
And he cannot get through to these people, right? So the basic idea of that is that if you can face up to the truth as an adult, the truth is comfortable, believe it or not. And it is age appropriate, and it's natural, so it feels good. Even unpleasant truths, eventually they feel good when you get used to them, right? What the philosopher realized when he went back into the cave is how agonizing that was to be in an environment that is not age appropriate, where you can only see fake life. And he recoils in horror at how awful he felt that whole time. But now that he can tell the difference. But when he talks to the chained up people, all they've ever known is that, so they think they're comfortable.
Yeah.
And the idea of that out there can only bring danger and everything else, right?
Disturbs the comfort zone.
That's right. But it's imaginary because it's actually not dangerous.
Right.
And in fact, in that philosophy session, when we were talking about this whole story amongst us, some people were saying, yeah, but I can see why they would want to remain there.
Well, but also that's what they know.
Mm-hmm.
What they know is safe because they know it.
That's right.
So within that sphere, I know what happened. I
Mm-hmm.
know what the outcome will be.
Yeah.
I know if I keep doing the same thing, I'll be safe.
Right. I'll be in pain.
No, yeah.
But I can predict the pain.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, having been out there, the guy realizes how much pain he was in, and he's trying to, do you realize how much pain you're in? And these people are spending their whole lives trying to forget about how much pain they're in. So he's saying, dude, you're in pain. And they're like, shut up.
Yeah.
I've been spending my whole life trying to drive that memory or that knowledge out of my head. And here you are bringing it up again. Right? And, or he's saying out there is way safer, way better. And they're like, no, I think they, like you were saying, the predictability is my comfort. Right? So this is typically what they're explaining from 2,000 years ago and more was the typical experience of the philosopher. If you're going to be a philosopher, that's what's going to happen. Right? Now, the philosopher has enough individualism where he can do that. He can engage in critical thinking, so he can do that. He has the emotional maturity to face down disturbing things. And he has enough inner significance to say, I trust what I'm doing. I trust in my instincts. I trust myself. And I'm significant. And those people that are casting the shadows, those are insignificant people because they're not behaving like real adults. And so he can do this, right? So what's the role of individualism in this? Well, I get, it's all interconnected, like I said, to all the topics. But how do we talk about individualism? Well, individualism allows him to get up and do what nobody else is doing. which is to dare to look around the cave and walk out,
Mhm.
you know. And when he's outside, there's nobody else but him. Literally,
Right,
there's
right.
nobody else in front of him.
The only adult in the.
The only adult in the room.
Right, right.
So he's out there by himself experiencing all of these things, but he doesn't need anybody else to tell him that this is an experience. He can experience it himself and do that. And then he has the individualism slash adulthood to go back into the cave,
Mhm.
and he doesn't have to do it.
Right,
He's
right,
putting himself in more danger.
right,
He doesn't know these people.
right.
They hate him.
And the shadow people as well, right?
The shadow people don't like him either. And the people he's trying to help would tell on him
Mm-hmm.
in a second. They would throw things at him.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, because he's achieved true adulthood,
Mm-hmm.
that brings true virtue. And virtue is where you do the right thing, even though it's none of your business. You don't have to do it, but you're doing it for the greater good. And you're putting yourself in danger when you don't have to. You could just look after yourself. And these are people you don't even know,
Right, right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the story of Oscar Schindler, with the Schindler's List.
Yeah.
I mean, the funny part about him is that he was a reprobate. He was a womanizer and a partier and a war profiteer. But he just decided, no, I've got to help these people. And he forgot about the profit. He forgot about personal safety.
Mm-hmm.
And he was dedicated to helping people that are not even like him.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And who knows if they would have stabbed him in the back.
Right.
How many of them would have ratted him out to save themselves, right?
Right, right.
So anyway, that's how individualism comes into this thing. But again, we're talking about somebody who just has individualism, right? Um, but the key is that it's not just because he's special. It's a natural state of affairs to be individual when you're an adult.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrible to not be. You may feel safe, but feeling safe does not mean you are safe. If you're feeling like you're in danger, that doesn't mean that you're actually in danger.
Mm-hmm. Are your feelings credible?
Are your feelings credible? And do you question them? Do you
Right.
interrogate them?
Yeah.
Do you just, like a little child, do you live in pure emotions where every emotion is real?
Mm-hmm.
Are you still in that level of development when you're an adult? Well, do you not realize what horrible outcomes you're going to get from that?
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter when it comes to being individualistic. It doesn't really matter if you feel scared about it, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
what I'm trying to say is just think about it logically. It is better to be individualistic.
Mm-hmm.
It feels better.
Mm-hmm.
It's natural.
Mm-hmm.
So if you feel scared, that's the child in you
Mm-hmm.
feeling fear. But the adult never feels fear about being an individual.
Mm-hmm.
The only person scared of being an individual is the child in you, and the child in you is not credible because the child cannot see the world as it truly is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's easily frightened, easily intimidated. So what you have to do is you have to learn to not discard the fear, because the fear is going to be there.
Right, right.
The idea is when it comes to being an individual, when you're challenged to be an individual, is to actually, okay, you could be more brave, well, you do have to be brave, but pure bravery is a bit of a challenge. So what I'm suggesting is if you can change your perspective, then the need for bravery goes way down. So how do you change your perspective to help you with this? Again, remember that it's natural to be individualistic when you're an adult. And it's the only way you can actually be an adult is through high levels of individualism. But on top of that, if you still remain blindly tribalistic when you're an adult, that is so unnatural, you are going to be in pain. And the point is, can you stop pretending that you're not in pain and actually feel the pain? But then that takes emotional maturity to feel the pain and live with it for a while so that it motivates you in the right direction, right? Yeah. So as we go through life, if you understand that individualism is a preferred outcome, and in fact, not even preferred, it's like you got to do it because to not do it is unbelievably unnatural. That you're going to come to forks in the road in your life where you have to choose: do I bend my knee to the tribe and remain an infant, or do I choose the individualistic road, which is natural and actually brings happiness and mental comfort? And yes, your outside is going to take a hit a lot of the times, but your inside will be protected. Now, what do you think happens if you choose to protect your outside and throw away your inside? Okay. That if you keep doing that long term, you're going to be going down the road and off a cliff. And that will you're going against nature, right? So I'm suggesting start looking out for those opportunities where you have the distinct choice between individualism and tribalism, and try to choose individualism until you start to see the benefits and how much better you'll feel. And then I guarantee you, if you ever taste that once, you will never choose the other way again. It is so satisfying that you will take any pain coming to you and you will laugh at it because either the pain is not as much as the benefit, or you'll realize the pain is imaginary. And you will start turning this way, choosing your inside, choosing adulthood, choosing individuality. That was good to get that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you just look at it globally, the cultures that are tribalistic, they want to live with the people that are individualistic. And the people who are individualistic are not beating down the doors to go live among the tribalistic. Right? So what's that all about? Right? Now, ever since COVID happened, I'm kind of like a bit leery about calling the Western world individualistic, if you know what I mean.
To an extent, in some areas.
Yeah. But in the big picture, yeah, they are actually way more individualistic. So,
one area where they're talking about the cowboy metaphor, cowboy being individual, no rules, everything.
right, yeah.
And they could cowboy his own proper virtue and stuff like that,
Mhm.
accordingly.
Yep.
But then they'll say you're a cowboy in a derogatory term as well.
Mhm.
Don't be a cowboy.
Right.
Don't be too individual.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where it's capped, I would say.
Yeah.
One area where it's capped.
Mhm.
Yes, being individual, but not too far or too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that brings up an interesting thing that I now know that my mother had a mother who was very narcissistic. I'm talking about pathological narcissism. The extreme the extremes of choosing favorites, and the black sheep and the not the favorites, right? Like this was so extreme, it pointed to extreme narcissism. And she was telling me she still has this memory. She's 90 now, almost 90. She still clearly remembers her mother saying, "Damn it, you are so independent."
Yeah.
Like cursing her.
Right.
Now, my mother is very independent, can be quite stubborn in some ways, but no, she's a nice lady. But just the idea that this mother of hers is taking a positive attribute
Yeah.
which is moving towards true adulthood,
Yeah, exactly.
and she's cursing her
Yeah.
as if it's a negative,
Yeah.
right?
You're doing it too much. Not good.
That's
You're
right.
not gonna vote too much
That's
here.
right. So why would a mother want to sabotage her child's even early moves towards adulthood,
Mhm.
precocious moves towards adulthood,
Mhm.
and why would you want to diminish that or try to change it? Well, if you're a narcissist, you're stuck as a 3-year-old in an adult's body forever,
Mhm.
and your own children are just like going by you in leaps and bounds of.
I can't control them anymore.
That's right.
They're not part of my tribe, basically. So
Yeah. If they become
you can't leave my tribe.
That's right.
How dare you leave my tribe, right?
Yeah. And if they become adults, they'll turn around and see me for who I am.
Yeah.
That's the
The
worst.
worst thing.
So if I can keep them childlike,
Mhm.
if I can keep them infantile,
Mhm.
if I can keep them like clubbed like a baby seal,
Yeah.
then they'll never actually turn around and see me for who I am.
Mhm.
So if we go back to the metaphor of the Plato's allegory of the cave, then we can see those people casting the shadows. Some of them are scary shadows. What's their motivation for not wanting people to turn around and see what's really going on?
Mhm.
That's why, because they want to remain hidden.
Mhm.
So again, whoever talks about those people doing the shadow casting,
When they're in control.
they're in control. These are the narcissists in society,
Right,
is what I'm
right,
saying.
right.
And the funny part is that the philosopher comes by
Mhm.
and he goes right by the narcissist,
Right.
casting the shadows, and goes to help the people.
Mhm.
But what's the root cause? The root cause is the people. So casting the shadows.
Mhm.
So what the narcissist should do is go after them.
Right.
Once you shut down the shadows,
Right.
then people will wake up
You're
and they'll
harder.
just get up on their own instead of you beating yourself up, be putting yourself in so much danger. So this kind of explains a lot of what's going on. Even the smartest of us, even the most awake of us,
Mhm.
are not even looking at the true narcissists that are actually doing this. They get a free pass.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, the adult forged covenant is what we're doing. It means there's no more free pass,
Mhm.
right? We are directly going against the shadow casting.
Mhm.
We are directly going and countering everything they're doing one for one. They're trying to destroy adulthood,
Mhm.
and we, in a highly organized manner,
Yeah.
we are defining adulthood, promoting it, creating a language for it, even a new language where necessary,
Mhm.
so that we can promote adulthood in a highly coordinated fashion.
Mhm.
And so this is what the ancient philosophers missed, and this is what we're upgrading today. We're going after the root problem. We're not just going to react
Mhm.
against what's happening, right? What if there's a million people and I have to go and I have to, as a philosopher,
Right.
I have to grab each single one by the collar
Yeah.
while the shadows are playing
And still playing.
and still
Still
playing
playing, yeah.
and try to
And they probably
grab,
turn up the volume at the same time.
right?
This guy trying to disturb the crowd.
Mhm.
Turn up the volume.
Drown me out.
Drown you out. Yeah.
And I got to go after each one, grab him by the cheeks and turn around and look.
Mhm.
And he goes, I don't want to look,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
So,
It's like you're trying to fight the zombies, right? The zombies are just like continuously going. And
yeah,
you
yeah.
kill one zombie, and then the next one comes to kill you, and back to kill you again.
Oh, I touched it and I
It's a
turned it
second,
up.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've covered this. What's the difference between passivity, reactivity, and proactivity?
Mhm.
One of the things, okay, so there's another question. How come the narcissists get a free pass? Right? How come nobody talks about them in the allegory of the cave?
Who's telling the story?
What's that?
Who is telling the story, essentially?
Well, the philosopher is telling the story.
But he's not telling the real truth in that sense.
That's right. He's skipping right by them.
Exactly.
He's only talking about the outcome, and
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So the philosopher himself is only reacting when you think about it.
He's more aware. He's more individual. He's more
right.
But he still has to go further.
Yeah. So that's a good point. He's a tiny minority of the population who could actually solve this on his own without any mentoring or help, which means that's not your average person, right? What we're really worried about, what we're talking about is the average person, right? So if he can do that by himself, that's great. But look how he's still being reactive.
Right.
Look how the people casting the shadows in the cave are being proactive. They set up the fires. They cast the shadows for a purpose, and it's for a long-term purpose. And they have proactively dialed into the weaknesses in humans, where they can be, if you grow them up from childhood where their parents are watching shadows, then the next generation will watch the shadows with even less skepticism.
Exactly. That's just normal.
That's normal. But they've proactively tapped into that esoteric occult knowledge, right? And even the rare philosopher himself is just reacting.
Yeah.
So what we're moving into is where the philosopher is, for the first time in 2,000 years, is going to be proactive.
Be a real adult.
That's a real adult. Yeah. So that brings up another question. These people in the cave who are casting the shadows, if being proactive is exclusively the domain of real adults, then how is it they can be proactive? Because they're malevolent, they're malignant, they're narcissistic, they're controlling. So how is it they're being proactive? But we get back to this point, this phrase I have, which is the pathological narcissist will always pretend to be the only adult in the room. The average person will be loath to admit when they might be the only adult in the room. And only the true adult will realize and accept when they may be the only adult in the room and behave accordingly. So that's why the narcissists are taking on the features of adulthood, because they're pretending, which includes being proactive. But they're bastardizing proactivity. They're using it for bad ends. But because they're proactive, that's why they win, because there's no...
effective. There's a strategy, right?
Yeah. There's no
individuals, the adults who go, hey, wait a minute.
That's right. There's no pushback. There's no counterbalance, right? So that's why even retarded proactivity wins if there's no competition. So
it's actually really profound.
It feels really profound, yeah.
The whole thing.
Yeah. So again, in the future, and what we're doing right now is we are identifying the root cause of the problem, which is what the narcissists are doing. We are accepting our role as real adults, and we're going to behave as real adults by being proactive. And a huge part of proactivity, which you'll see in another video we've done, is that you have to identify the root of the problem unflinchingly. Okay? And when the real adults come together and actually take charge and displace the narcissist, the 3-year-old emotional development in adult bodies people out of places of authority and replace them, it will be permanent. They'll never get back in. Yeah, so that was our talk about, and I'm glad I went to the last philosophy meetup where they brought in this whole thing. Hey,
that's great.
Yeah, this whole thing about Plato's allegory of the cave. All right. So anything you got?
I was thinking of like when you talked about the people, the character. One character I thought of would be William Wallace
Mm-hmm.
in the Scottish Times sort of thing.
Yeah.
As being individual, you'd say he's reactive at the start because they killed his wife, his girlfriend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also became leader, became proactive, and how do I attack the English? How do I
Yeah. Yeah.
defend the country, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he did that also at great cost. He didn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
He could have gone and lived his life. He could have. There's a point later in the movie too where they said, "Just pledge your allegiance to the king, and we'll stop the suffering."
Right. Right.
But he, to the very last breath, he declined, right?
Right.
And he took the suffering, but he has full integrity to the last breath.
Right. I will not kneel to my lessers.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I wouldn't do that to other people.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to accept people doing it to me.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so till next time, everybody.